So good morning, everyone. We're gathered today for the Gaura Purnima, the full moon, that coincides with the appearance of Sri Caitanya, a historical figure and a spiritual figure who is said to have appeared for exoteric and esoteric reasons. And I wanted to speak about that, but I've decided to speak about another sense of the appearance, emergence of Sri Caitanya in the world, at least at the moment for this morning. And in that regard, I want to speak about Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's meeting with his tutelage under his three gurus, Vande Gurun, that we have been hearing as of yesterday from Chaitanya Charitamrita. The book begins with respect being offered by the author to a plurality of gurus, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had at least three gurus. He had an initiating Diksha guru, he had a sannyas guru, and a Ragmarg guru. And the meeting with them have been recorded in the text like Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And so this is also a kind of appearance, or a kind of a birth, if you will, a beginning, initiations and so forth, to be initiated into the mantra, to be initiated into sannyas, to be initiated in, for all intents and purposes, into the Ragmarg. These are significant stages in the emergence of the phenomenon that is Sri Caitanya and his dispensation to the world. It may be a little less abstract, and that might be good for you. I can get a little abstract, as you know. So some narrative about Sri Caitanya, who again, as I say, is a very much, in the real sense of the term, as it's thought today, a historical person. The historicity of Krishna's appearance is difficult to establish. Not that we're burdened by that, but some people are, and would tend to discount his appearance without that. The history of Jesus' appearance is thought to be, in some sects of Christianity, very significant, important, compelling, the physical reality of his appearance and so forth. And so they've, sought to document it and whatnot. And while we would have difficulty, admittedly, doing the same by historical standards of today to document the appearance of Krishna, it's a true event, but by those standards, we cannot, probably to the satisfaction of everyone. However, we can, of course, document the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, perhaps more so than even the appearance of Jesus, not to make a comparison necessarily, but he has been called the Eastern Savior by the great Bhakti-yoga Thakur. And I know at least one instance, and I'm sure there are many, I know there are many, but one that sticks out, of a crossover, a religious, cultural crossover of appreciation from the Christian side of religious and spiritual thought, and spiritual experience, to the East, and an appreciation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I cited it in my book, Rasa, Love, Relationships, and Transcendence. Oh, and forgive me, but I cannot forget his name, but it was a Christian theologian who said, of all saints, religious figures in the world, both East and West, I can think of no one, I'm paraphrasing here, single such person who more exemplified the love of God that Christ spoke about, and that is the person of Sri Caitanya, appearing in West Bengal, who resided for many years on the shores of the ocean in the seaside village of Jagannath Puri. Chanting Krishna's name caused him to readily fall into swoons of ecstasy and so on and so forth, and his selflessness as a sannyasi was noted by the scholar, and so on. It's a nice statement. So the divinity, the history of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance and his obvious divinity is very well documented, and it is of an extraordinary nature. Some academics in times gone by trying to understand, or maybe trying to dismiss, on the pretext of understanding, the ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, have attributed it to epileptic seizures. But of course, epilepsy is not contagious, and we find that it's in Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, whatever he had was quite contagious, and it was passed on to others, and we are experiencing it ourselves to one extent or another. And the extremity of his experience is, for that matter, largely available to all of us if we will avail ourselves to his teaching. How much ecstasy is there in those two syllables? Krishna, Rupa Goswami made the statement, when I utter them, I wish for thousands of tongues and thousands of ears to be able to take advantage of that. So that is, sometimes people say, devotees say, I wish I had, if only I'd taken birth during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching is that Krishna is fully present in his name, so we're not perhaps paying attention to his teaching. Not a bad sentiment, but it's not that we're missing out in something. Indeed, it gets better as it goes on. There's more revealed. So a real person, in the ordinary sense of the term. Again, I've said before, how real are our persons that are constituted of fleeting desires, of things that we come into possession of and slip through our hands and so forth. The self that's based on such desires is rather fleeting and insubstantial. And when we speak of the personhood of the Godhead, of course we speak of a theological person, but we also articulate and explain his theology in such a way that we have access to apply ourselves with regard to it and turn a theological person into the most real person you could ever possibly meet. And the result of which will be finding a personality for yourself, so to speak, that will be very substantial as well, and a personality in relation to him, based on attachment to him being the Godhead. So, so then, with regard to Krishna, we haven't got to labor to convince anyone of the existence of Krishna in a quote-unquote real sense of the term. We simply have to point to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why is that? Because he was fully absorbed in Krishna, and we see that there is a tangible result from that. You can't be connected with a figment of your imagination or a myth only, and have that type of real and substantial experience. And in the very least, the very extreme least, that experience was very real in the sense that it afforded him complete detachment from material life, from what most people would depend upon for living and think life constituted. We'll get to that, of course, when we speak about his meeting with his sannyas guru. The sannyas means the renunciation of the world, and the standard of his renunciation was extreme. So that's something very real, very tangible. In other words, he could live without, so to speak. That means he's living within, as we say, go within or go without. That's our idea. And if you don't go within, then you end up going without for sure. You end up with an empty bag only. So he was preoccupied with Krishna. He meditated on Krishna. He chanted the names of Krishna, and he was very much preoccupied with Krishna as the lover of Radha, himself in the mood of Radha. This is then the erotic, transcendental erotic life of the Godhead. And you cannot be absorbed in the erotic life of someone and to give up all material sense of eroticism. That would be, what's on your mind is what you do. So it serves to illustrate, of course, that the eroticism of Radha Krishna that we find showcased and is the center in many regards of many respects of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is not like the material eroticism. There may be some similarity. I said the other day, someone asked me once, after studying Krishna Lila, is there any real sex life in Krishna Lila? I said to him, no, you don't understand. There's no real sex life in the material world. That's only a perverted reflection. Calm is only the shadow of prem. So, a very important religious figure, a very extraordinary person, which is we can document historically, and we find that Krishna exists in him. And you cannot study Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and not end up studying Krishna. It's absolutely impossible. And one of the reasons, of course, is that he's Krishna. That's part of the esoteric and exoteric ideas of his descent, explained very eloquently by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. But I'm sure we'll touch on that to some extent, either tonight or today or tonight, this morning or tonight. But let me segue here then into the narrative, that the three narratives that I wanted to relate and reflect upon. The three narratives of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's meeting with his gurus. He, of course, was very famous in his hometown of Nadia, Navadvip. Dvipa means island, and Nava means 9. At that time, the Ganges Delta there, this is where the Ganges, from starting high in the Himalaya, comes down and enters into the Bay of Bengal. In the Ganga Delta, there were 9 islands that formed, and this then is the abode, the dham, the location of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. This abode of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is said to be non-different from Vrindavan, where Krishna appears, but it's like a reversible jacket, something like that. You put it on one way, it was one color, you turn it on the other way, it's another color, and they kind of have similar elements to them. you can tell that the reverse side is connected to the other side, and it's the same jacket. It is said that the Vrindavan is compared to a lotus. One time I was walking with Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and we had been going to the different places of Krishna's Leela to pay homage to this Leela and contemplate it. Said to take place here, and another Leela over there. This is a tradition, of course. The immediate associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Shastra Gurus I mentioned yesterday, who had Rup, Sanatana Goswami and so forth, they were commissioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan and, by the strength of their spiritual vision and experience, excavate, if you will, the places of Krishna's pastimes, to point out, that is to say to the public, this happened here, and reveal, if you will, Vrindavan, which as a holy place and a place of Krishna's appearance, is sometimes more or less visible, sometimes covered and sometimes then uncovered. And they did a huge service in uncovering, excavating the places of Krishna Lila, and they were very successful as renunciates. They were renunciates. They had nothing except the power of their conviction, their faith, their spiritual experience, and the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And on the basis of this, they went to Vrindavan, and the result of their going there was that eventually, in due course, any king and queen of India, which at the time India was various feudal states or kingdoms, any king or queen that was worth anything, it's not how much money you have at a certain point, but it's how you spend it, what kind of artwork you've got, what kind of furniture you might have, and so forth. So you weren't a king or a queen that was really worth anything if you didn't have a place in Vrindavan, if you hadn't contributed to making a memorial to this pastime of Krishna or that pastime of Krishna, to make a bathing ghat, to construct something where you could come down to the Jamuna, there where Krishna had, the Goswami said, here is where he stole the gopis' clothes and hid up in the tree, and the Vastraharana Leela and so forth. So then somebody went and built a ghat there, or a temple here and there and so forth. So they got the patronage of the royalty, of the whole political. It's like they got Washington, D.C. to come, to Audarya and say, yeah, this is a special place, and build a monument here or something. They spoke about Chaitanya here, and so forth. Vote for me. Something like that. So they were very successful. There was a lot of very much spiritual power. They had nothing material to attract such patronage, but the strength of their faith, their conviction, their spiritual experience, which was externally manifest in the form of their renunciation. Their inner life was a little harder to see, and one tends to reveal that, or to conceal that. Of course, their attachment to Krishna was obvious in a general sense, but at any rate, they were spiritually very powerful to attract such patronage. Welcome. And so we were in Vrindavan, and we were going to these, we would go to Radhakunda, and we would go to Govardhan, and you had to take a bus, to go there, and or a horse and buggy to go, to another place. And so one of my associates there, one of my godbrothers, said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we read in the Bhagavatam that Krishna went, to this place at night and this place here and that. And we're taking, these are taking a long time to get there. It's taking like an hour to get there by bus and so forth. How could he, go there and come back and not get caught in the night and so forth at such distances? And he was thinking a little too much about it, if you will. And Prabhupada said, oh, well, Vrindavan is like a lotus. He opened his hand like this to kind of depict the petals of the lotus, he said. And each of these places of Leela Sthalis, they are like petals on the lotus. And so when Krishna wants to go from one to the other, then the lotus closes up. And then it opens again. So this is a spiritual answer to a material type of question, if you will, a material analysis of a spirituality, kind of an importing of our intellect, the burden of our intellect, into a land that's meant to free us from such burdens. One time, just another small example in this regard, one fellow had told Prabhupada, I read your book, the Krishna book, which is all about Krishna's Leela. And Prabhupada said, what did you think? He said, I thought it was a bit fantastic. And Prabhupada said, I think you are a bit fantastic. That is a bit of that you think that God can't do so many things and so forth. Another disciple once, upon reading about Vrindavan, it's described it's so many miles this way and so many miles that way, the circumference and so forth, measurement. And he said, according to the book, it's this big, and then Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's father, said to have 900,000 cows. Now I calculated this out, and there's not enough room for 900,000 cows there. And Prabhupada said, you read too much. So these are good answers. At the same time that there is a geographical kind of description of the dhams of Vrindavan and Navadvip, we are also taught that to think of them as a geographical location is dham aparad, an offense to the dham. They transcend. You see, it's just like Krishna says in the Gita, Na tad bhashayate suryo nashasham konupabhaka yad gatvana nivartante tad dhamma paramamama. He said that my dham means light. He says, and it means abode. My abode, he says, is self-luminous. If the light of the world is consciousness, as it is, without consciousness it's all dark. There's no seer. And there's nothing to be seen. If there's no seer, there's nothing to be seen. So consciousness is luminous in this sense. And he says, my abode is self-illumined. Na tadbhashayate suryo nashasham kunapavaka. He says, there's no need for moon there. There's no need for sun there. There's no need for fire. Prabhupada translated fire, electricity. The modern rendition. There's no need for any of these artificial, if you will, as you're thinking of it, ways of illumining. He said, such is my abode, and going there, one never comes back. He's saying it's luminous in all respects, not just in the sense of light. The lights are on, but it's enlightening. It's enlightened. It is entering into the light from which one will never return to the darkness. There's no possibility of that. And so, my point is what? At the same time, that's the philosophy, right? In the context of Leela, which is moving on a canvas of philosophy by the force of ecstasy, bhava, there's a canvas, if you will, that the art of Krishna Leela is drawn on. there's a stage on which the drama of Krishna Lila is performed. So the stage is a tattva, a philosophy. We call it achintya beda bed. You have to know this. What is abeda beda bed? Then you can talk about Krishna Lila in so many ways. But at any rate, on that canvas, on that stage, the art, the drama of Krishna Lila is being performed, and the drama is being fueled by bhava, by ecstasy. We say, for example, everyone belongs to Krishna. Krishna is the Cheto, Chetanas, Chetananam. He's the one eternal, we are the plural eternal. Eko bahunam vidadati kaman, the Shruti says. And the many consciousness units are dependent upon the one. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. The one is maintaining the many. So there's one sustainer, maintainer, and there are many maintained. It's like there's one husband and many wives. Of course, wives maintain husbands these days, and probably in other days gone by in ways that weren't appreciated. But in the Leela, we find that the gopis aren't married to Krishna, for example. But then, from the point of view of Siddhanta, we say, wait a minute, he's the husband of their husbands. So that's the Siddhanta. Then, on the canvas of that Siddhanta, the art of the bhava is a spiritual kind of illusion, if you will, that's real, because it gives pleasure to Bhagavan, and that's the standard of real reality and dharma, samsiddhir haditoshanam. The measure, the extent to which it pleases Bhagavan is the extent to which something is meaningful. So that bhava is very meaningful. So the bhava is drawn on this canvas. And so anyway, the dham, it is luminous, effulgent, self-illumined. That's the philosophy. There's no need for sun. There's no need for moon. But in Leela, which is performed in the Dham, there is a sun, there is a moon. that is a bhava moon, a bhava sun. They're devotees. There's a sun that's a devotee, a sun that's a moon. So so similarly with the geography, it's this many, this far and this wide and so forth and so on, but it's not at the same time. The Dham it is everywhere, in that everything is within it. If we go from material life to Brahman, from Brahman it seems big, just infinity. If we go into Vaikuntha, it seems to become smaller again. There are forms and shapes, and there's said to be planets, and this gives you a sense of size. Brahman has no sense of size. Right? Then we go to Vrindavan, it becomes even smaller. But Vrindavan is smaller than Vaikuntha, just a village, something like that. But it's actually bigger, so we were moving really in the direction of affection. And there's none here, or very little here. Very little. So it's a very small place. In Brahman, there's no exploitation. So that's bigger. There's no meanness there. Some kind of indirect anandam. And if we go to Vaikuntha, then Ananda is increasing manifold. If we go to Vrindavan, then what is the measure of Ananda? So how big it is. Everything is contained within that. In other words, the full measure of Ananda, of love, of possibility of the jiva, who is one part constituted Ananda, this is the most important part of itself. In connection with the Swarup Shakti of Krishna, the possibility to experience the full potential of being a unit of Ananda comes to the fore. So anyway, the Dham is the full measure of Ananda. So the implication would be every lesser measure of Ananda is contained within there as well. So in this sense, the Dham is everywhere. But for the sake of Leela, it's this big, and once you cross this place, then you've gone to Chandravali's camp, and once you've gone there, you've gone to Radharani's camp, and so forth and so on. So, so Navadvip, then this lotus that is Vrindavan, it is said that inside, if you look, it's opened up, and you look at the center, you look in, and you keep looking there. What's the center? Radha and Krishna. As I said the other day, if you look at Krishna closely, you say, okay, look at Krishna, what do you see? Then someone will describe, then someone will describe Krishna. We say, look closer, what do you see? Look closer. And you say, what do you see? Oh, I see another. Radha Krishna. Now you're getting close to seeing Krishna. Now, look closer. Radha Krishna Pranay. Vikriti ladini shakti rasmat. Ekatmano vapi bhuvi puradeham vedo gatoto. Chaitanyakam prakatam aduna tadvayam chaikamaptam. Radha bhava duti. Subalitam naomi Krishna. Swarupam. What do you see? The one, you look more closely, you saw two. Look closely again. The two have become one as Chaitanya. Another lotus opens. This is the reversible jacket, if you will. It's the same jacket, but it's reversed out. The lotus within the lotus. And here, you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu must be Krishna. He cannot be an avatar of Krishna. He must be Krishna himself, the avatari. He has to be. Why? Because he is Krishna tasting the prema madhurya that is relevant only to Krishna. Narayan, or any of the avatars of Narayan, do not have the quality of prema madhurya. When Rupa Goswami has analyzed the qualities of Krishna, he said that he has, 4 qualities that we don't find in Narayan. Lila madhurya, Rupa madhurya, Venu madhurya, prema madhurya. Madhurya means sweet. So he has leelas that are very sweet and charming, human-like. He has a sweet Venu madhurya. Narayan isn't carrying that flute. That's very sweet. This is he plays the flute and charms everyone and so forth. And Rupa madhurya, two-handed form, very, very charming. Arjuna wanted to see this form. Sweet form. And prema madhurya. Prema madhurya means he's surrounded by a certain type of devotees with prema that he corresponds with. So Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. If we say, okay, I accept he's an avatar. We say, wait a minute, you have to go a little further here. This is Kaviraj's argument. He's the avatari. He's the same as Krishna. He is Krishna himself. A fine, subtle distinction here. Not an avatar of Krishna. He's the avatari in an extraordinary kind of reversed out role, if you will. He is trying to taste prema madhurya from the vantage point of the devotee, of Radha. That is what Chaitanya is about. He cannot be an avatar. They're not interested in this prema madhurya. Krishna is interested in this. This is relative only to Krishna. So suddenly this lotus, if you will, of Golok, there's another lotus inside of it that is called Navadvip. Navadvip. at the Ganga Delta, and all the Bay of Bengal, and all the Dvipas, all the islands. Navadvipa, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam. When Prahlad was asked, what is the best thing you've learned from your teacher? Of course, his father didn't know that his teacher was in secret Narada Muni. He thought he was learning about politics and diplomacy and how to get ahead in life. And he said, the best thing I learned was hearing and chanting, meditating upon, and all these things. Nala Lakshan Bhakti, 9 forms of bhakti. The 9 principal forms of bhakti: hearing, chanting, offering prayers, doing archan, worship of the deity, and so forth. All these things. This is the best thing I've learned. These islands then correspond with these all expressions of bhakti. And in the center of them is this Antardvip, inner. Antar means inner. And this is where Mayapur is. This is where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. And there, as I was saying in the narrative, he was very popular. He was named, as we heard this morning in the poetic rendering that we read of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, he was named by Sita. Sita is the name of the wife of Advaita. Advaita is the one who performed the puja with Ganga Jal, the water of Ganga, and the Tulsi, blossom. Worshipped Krishna with the view to cause him to descend in the Kali Yuga and so forth. So his wife, he was very prominent in Chaitanya Leela, and his wife as well. And she, we heard, coming to the ceremony of his birth, gave him the nickname Nimai. Nimai after the neem tree that he was born under. That tree is there, as I said, historical reality, right? He was born under the neem tree, and neem is said to be an auspicious tree, and it has antiseptic qualities, and some of you may be familiar with neem and its properties. And so out of a protective sense of the child, she said, let him be called Nimai. It was a nickname. A name after the neem tree, and that will keep any ghosts away or something like that. It was thought that if a child died in those days, childbirth or child death, was more often thought of, and so people would tend to think superstitiously that it was a ghost took the child or something like that. Now, we should know, of course, that I'll give you an example how to help think about that. Because obviously there are superstitious things, and then there's Leela. Prabhupada once said that if you clip your fingernails and you let them fall rather than clean up, then thieves will come at that place, or ghosts. I forget what it was. Yeah. So I told the devotee, I was clipping my fingernails. He told me, I said, that's just superstition. No, Prabhupada said that. I said, yeah, it's still a superstition. He said, but how could you say that? Prabhupada just believed in superstition. I said, no, it's a superstition, but it happens in the Leela. In Leela it happens. All those superstitions happen, and there are all kinds of ghosts and all kinds of things in the Leela, from the Leela perspective. But we don't have to worry. But I cleaned up. Anyway. So she named him Nimai, and the name kind of stuck. It was a nickname and kind of a blessing from the motherly Sita. And later then, he was called Nimai Pandit. It's the extent to which the nickname, his birth name was Vishwambar Mishra. Vishwambar means the maintainer of the world. Vishwambar Mishra, and a Brahmin family. religious family, and he had an elder brother. There were some daughters that were born and had died, and it was on account of this that Sita thought we should make sure he doesn't die. I'll have to give some blessing, try with all of my power, and in the form of the nickname Nimai, and it stuck. And later, when his scholarship came to the surface, which was extraordinary, he was then titled the Pandit, Nimai Pandit. So he's very famous in Nadia for his scholarship and his ability to work with knowledge like it was like clay. You just turn an argument this way and turn it another way, and so forth. He would make arguments that no one could defeat, and then he would defeat them himself, and then he would revert back and reestablish his points and so forth. So we find a measure of knowledge, which is one of the Aishwarya, one of the opulences. It is said knowledge, renunciation, fame, beauty, wealth, and strength or religiousness. This is the real strength, dharma. These are the 6 opulences, and that Parashara, the great sage, father of Vyasa, said that he defined Bhagavan by way of these opulences. He said, who has some Aishvaryasya samagrasa viryasya yasa sasriya, or who has all these 6 opulences in full, Bhagavan, it means possessing all opulence, is God. And by implication becomes all attractive, because we are attracted to famous people, and you want to hear about what they said, whether they have anything to say or not. And they usually don't a lot of the time, but still, and wealth and so on, beauty and all. So we find in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all these opulences, but we also find a very considerable measure of knowledge and a corresponding vairagya, detachment, in his sannyas. We have to get to that, of course. His sannyas, his renunciation was very extreme. But before all of that, it was his knowledge that was prominent. And it was so prominent that Navadvip at the time was a seat of learning. It's said that the great Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who is known as the greatest logician of India, I think he's recorded in the Encyclopedia Britannica edition, that he had gone to Mithila, which was the place which had like the crown of the most learned scholars or something like that, and they had a book there that you could go and study, but you couldn't make a copy and go with you. But take it with you. Sarvabhauma went and memorized the book and took it with him that way to Nadia and began to teach from that. His disciple Raghunandana then became very, very famous, perhaps more famous than, or as famous as Sarvabhauma, for his logic. It was called at the time a Nava Nyaya, a new type of logic. Nyaya was a particular discipline and so forth. So this was very prominent. And of course, the story is also there of Raghunandan, the Pandit, riding on the boat across the Ganges with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he had just written his book, which became very famous later on. And he wanted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to read his book and give his opinion on that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, yes, I'll do that, but first you read mine. I've written one. And he manifested a book. And so Raghunandan began to read it, and he began to cry. And Mahaprabhu said, why are you crying? He said, well, because I might as well throw my book in the Ganges now. Mahaprabhu said, give me that back. He handed back the book, and he threw his book in the Ganges. So you become the most learned scholar from your book. This is what I think of knowledge. That is knowledge. So he was very famous, and even the Digvijay, the most well-known at the time, Pandit, they would go and they would have debates and conquer, and get notoriety in this way. When he came to Navadvip, the Pandits all left town. The elderly Pandits all left town, and they thought that, we don't want to be around when he was there. That's convenient, but Nimai will be there, the boy, and of course, if he defeats a boy, we'll say, well, you came to our town, you defeated a boy. What's that? And then they thought, but kind of quietly, but if Nimai defeats him, then what would be the glory of Navadvip? And they're thinking from a scholastic point of view and so forth. They had some inkling that might be possible. They were very enamored by him. They were very attracted to him. Everybody in Navadvip was very attracted to him except the Vaishnavas. They liked him, but they didn't like the fact that he was emphasizing knowledge over devotion. And they were, of course, preoccupied with the relative value of knowledge and in comparison to bhakti and so forth. And so by this time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not yet exhibited fully his bhakti and who he was, in the full sense of the term. The Leela is slowly unfolding, and this is part of it. He wanted to show how small a thing knowledge was. So anyway, that Pandit did come to Navadvip, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him to please, we are in your presence, recite some praise of the Ganges. So without thinking, this Pandit, is said, he spoke 100 verses, Sanskrit verses, full of alliteration and other ornaments, linguistic ornaments and so forth, in glorification of the Ganges. That's quite a feat. And so Mahaprabhu said, we are very impressed. That is extraordinary. And so then he said, I have one question though. In the 64th verse, you said this, and I think you might have wanted to say it like that. And the Pandit was thinking, how could he remember the 64th verse? I mean, I recited these things like the blowing of the wind. And then he finding some fault in it grammatically, and at the time, you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit was only a student of grammar. This is only the beginning of language study. And the Pandit was far beyond, the grammatical studies. He was a litterateur, not a student of grammar. And here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is remembering the verse and then pointing out some literary ornament that was actually a fault. So the Pandit went home and he was bewildered how this could happen, how he could be embarrassed like this in assembly. And of course in the night the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning, appeared there and said, don't you know who he is? He's my Lord, and so forth. So it's a wonderful story. At any rate, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was famous in this way in Bengal, and he had his own students that he was teaching at one point. But his father passed away, Jagannath Mishra, and something else was, of course, stirring in him. The time was coming for manifesting the principal reason for his descent, or one of them at least, the distribution of Rag Bhakti. During that time, before he went to East Bengal to perform the Shraddha ceremony for his deceased father, one sannyasi named Ishwar Puri, who was disciple of Madhavendra Puri, who was the guru of Advaita and Nityananda and others and so forth, came into Navadvip. Vrindavan Das Thakur describes him in the Chaitanya Bhagavat as coming in disguise. He was a sannyasi and a devotee, but he dressed himself in such a way that people would not identify him as a saintly person at the time. He wanted to be kind of out of the spotlight, the line, not that so that he would do something unbecoming, but he didn't want any recognition of fame or...
Incognito.
He was, incognito, right. he was incognito, and so people didn't understand him, but he came to the house of Advaita, where Sankirtan was always being performed. Advaita was a great advocate of the Yuga Dharma, of Nam Kirtan and so forth. And there, he sat listening to the Kirtan and the Katha, the discussions conducted by Advaita, and Advaita looked at him and said, Bap, he said, what did he say? Tumi Konjan, Vaishnav sannyasi Tumi. He said, who are you? You look like a Vaishnav sannyasi. He said. He said, it said by Vrindavan Das, he could see in ways that others could not see. When one real devotee meets another, they see, they see their bhava, their ecstasy, their inner reality. He looked at him and he brought him out, as Ishwar Puri, from his humility and so forth. And Ishwar Puri was a scholar also. And one day, he was staying for some time in Navadvip. He met on the street Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nimai Pandit. Nimai Pandit paid his respects to Ishwar Puri, a devotee of Krishna. Now, it was revealed that he was a devotee and a sannyasi. He paid his respects to him. And Ishwar Puri was very attracted to the boy. And the boy invited him, you please come to our house for dinner. Which is, of course, how the sannyasis they were maintained by the household community. Everyone would have competition, who could invite the sannyasi to their house for dinner or lunch that day, and so forth. If you could get him to eat, then you felt like, my obligation is fulfilled, I fed him, The obligation is more than that. And they let you know when they come to your house to eat. So anyway, he came, he took the prasad offering of Sachi and that she had made, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was attracted to him, and he was attracted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at the time he said to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that, you're Nimai Pandit, you're well known for your scholarship and so forth. I've written a book, maybe Krishna Lilamrita, and I thought maybe you could read it over and see, look at it from a literary point of view. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to him, see here now, he's with this will become his Diksha Guru. And so in his presence already his bhakti is starting to come out. And what does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? Oh, I may be a big scholar, but I cannot criticize a devotee's book. Someone who's written a book glorifying Krishna, that has no faults. Any book glorifying Krishna is perfect. Even if there is a fault from another's point of view, this is the faultless course to take. Glorifying Bhagavan. Even he said to him, it's learned people say Vishnave, Vishnave. And those who are not learned, they say Vishnaya. He said, but either one is accepted by Vishnu when they say it from the heart and so forth. So there can be no fault in your book. You're a devotee. Your book is glorifying Krishna Lila. So later on, then they had spent some time together, and they were discussing the book. And before Puri was reading, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was appreciating and commenting and so forth. And then he said, suddenly he said, I think you should have used this verb tense here. And Ishwar Puri said, And then the session ended, and Ishwar Puri went back and thought about it and looked at it, and then he analyzed it carefully, and he said, actually, it's a complex grammatical argument. He said, actually, he realized I did use the right one, and I see why he said that and why he could have thought that, and so forth. So then when the next day he went back and he explained it to him, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, just see, I have been defeated. This is the only person that defeated Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in scholarship. This is his Leela. That he would be defeated by his guru. He took so much pleasure in it. When others were defeated, of course, they felt themselves the losers. And he was defeated by a devotee. He took great happiness in that. And then Ishwar Puri went on his way to East Bengal, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then, on the pretext of performing the Shraddha ritual for his deceased father, went to East Bengal with some students, and there he had a transformation at Gaya. He saw the famous footprint of Gadadhar, and ecstatic symptoms began to manifest him, and he passed out and so forth. And there again he met Ishwar Puri. And he was actually cooking lunch, and Ishwar Puri appeared on the scene, and Mahaprabhu said, "Oh, you please eat." Ishwar Puri said, "No, you've cooked, you have to eat." He said, "I'll cook again. That's all right. You eat now. You've come to my house." He fed him, and then it said, the goddess Lakshmi appeared in the kitchen and manifested another lunch for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these are the stories. So at that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him for initiation. And Ishwara Puri said, I know who you are. And so Mahaprabhu revealed himself to him. And he realized, I'm in a Leela, where I'm the guru of Krishna, in a very extraordinary Leela, the reverse out of Krishna Leela, where Krishna, who's the object of love, becomes the shelter of love, in pursuit of experiencing himself like one who is the shelter of love. Radha, in this case, experiences himself. And this is the reverse out, I suppose. So he realized, I'm in such a Leela. Ishwar Puri, of course, how did this happen to him then? Of course, it's all God's arrangement, but he was a disciple, as I mentioned, of Madhavendra Puri. And in the end, he took care of Madhavendra Puri when he was bedridden, and he waited on him hand and foot, menial services and so forth. You know, we go to the guru, we want to be entertained and hear some knowledge and so on and so forth. But Ishwar Puri was staying to the, he was there for love, for affection. So he waited on him hand and foot and so forth, and he was said to have been blessed at the time by Ishwar Puri, and this way he became, in Leela, the guru of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is the first guru of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ishwar Puri. And after receiving the mantra from him, the 10-syllable mantra, Krishna mantra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went mad. It is said by Krishnadas Kaviraj that when he came back to his guru and said, "What kind of mantra have you given me?" And he quoted a nice verse from Bhagavatam describing the falling on the ground and rolling in ecstasy and so forth that's possible by the power of Krishna Nam. And Ishwar Puri said, "It's working." Yes, that's what's supposed to happen. It may look disconcerting, but that is the nature of prem. Krishna premyar adbhuta charit. It has a wonderful characteristic, the prem. Bhayavisha jalahoy bitare anandamoy. Outside it looks a little foreboding. These tears and crying, falling on the ground. Again, they thought it was, some people, epileptic fits. But inside, bitare anandamoy. It is anandamoy, full of ananda. And material life is, of course, just the opposite. Looks like it might be enjoyable on the outside, but if you look at the core, the inside, it's hollow, it's empty, it's rotten. It's about taking. Not giving, it's mean-spirited. We're on the take here. So, Mahaprabhu took Diksha. Then this was the beginning then of his giving. Then he began to give bhakti everywhere. He crossed back into West Bengal, and in his teaching he taught only one thing. How every word in the Sanskrit lexicon means Krishna. So it was a huge event and a huge transformation in him, and now all the Vaishnavas who were performing Sankirtan and amidst opposition in Navadvip, where, as I say, this kind of dry scholarship was, and materialism was prominent. They got encouragement that the Nimai Pandit, most learned of Navadvip, has become a Vaishnava. Nimai Pandit has become a Vaishnava. Nimai Pandit has become a Vaishnava. So the word went all over Nadia. And they tried to understand what kind of Vaishnava, what kind. When he does something, he does something. Whether it's knowledge, we can't imagine the depths of his knowledge. Now it's bhakti. We've never seen anything like this. What kind of bhakti? And sometimes they thought, his love of Krishna is so extraordinary. He has purchased Krishna so much by his love. He can give Krishna so readily. Maybe he is Krishna. No, that can't be. But that thought would come. Maybe he's Krishna. No, that can't be. Then it would come, maybe he is Krishna. And if he is, then where are his associates? Because Krishna's not alone. Dismiss that thought. Then it would come again. But then they realized, he sat one day on the altar in the house of Srivas where they would do kirtan at night. He sat on the altar and said, see me for who I am. And see you for who you are. He called each one forward and said, in the reverse out Leela, this is who you are. See me, see yourself. They realized, we are the associates of him. We're in another Leela here. This is extraordinary. We're in Vrindavan. We haven't left. But there's another lotus inside. We're in that one. Our roles are reversed out to some extent, but they could trace it out. The parallels are the same. And then some of them wrote about it for our sake. This is an amazing experience they were having. And all this started to happen ostensibly as a result of Mahaprabhu's taking initiation. What are the possibilities of change then that come to us? Then he did perform Sankirtan in Navadvip for some time, and all the devotees were encouraged by that. The opposition was completely overcome. They would do Sankirtan, and then the Hindus who didn't understand what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was about, some of them complained even. And the government was a Muslim government. And so the Chand Kazi, he sent some people to break the mridangas. Stopped and said, there should be no public chanting like this, it's a nuisance. And so the devotees reported to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Chand Kazi has broken the mridanga. What to do now? And he said, let's go visit the Chand Kazi. And 100,000 devotees who went with torchlights, kirtan at the house of the Kazi. Protest, public protest. This has power in Kali Yuga. Right? Occupy the Kazi. It had power. And so they chanted. And the Kazi had to come out, but he was afraid. Mahaprabhu said, no, there's no reason to be afraid. We're living in the same village. You're an elder. You're like my uncle. Because you're an elder in the community, even though you're a Muslim and I'm a Hindu, ostensibly. My life transcends such sectarian concerns. And we're here on a friendly mission, don't mind them. They're all like that, riled up, And he said that he had something that he wanted to confide in Nimai Pandit and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, yes, please, go ahead. He said, no, in private. In private, I'd like to say. And Mahaprabhu said, this is private. All these people, this is private. He says, he's saying, my devotees and I are one. Don't think we're different. My devotees and I are one. Like when the Kumaras went to Vaikuntha, and he said, Mahaprabhu, Narayan came to the gate and said, "Oh, I have offended you." He said, "No, the gatekeepers offended you." He said, "No, I have offended you." And they were smart, the Kumaras, they got it. These are Hari's people, these are the Harijan, and they are one with him in a different kind of oneness than what we were interested in. They're one and different at the same time. Their love is what he corresponds with. It's like if I say, Hari Bhakti and I are one. Nobody thinks Hari Bhakti and I just disappeared and we're just turned into a formless something. No. We are on the same page, in the same paragraph, in the same sentence, inside of parentheses. He said, "My devotees and I." This is so you can say anything here. Whatever you say to me, you can say it here. So he told, "Last night I had a vision in a dream, and a figure with a lion's head and a man's body came, or what? And he jumped on my chest, and he had long nails like a lion, and he scratched the chest like this, and he said, 'That mridanga is my favorite instrument. Don't ever break it.' And then he opened his kurta and he said, 'Just see.' And there were the scratch marks, and all the devotees were, Bhagavan Narasingha, one of the avatars, the protector of the Sankirtan Bhakti, Vigna Vinashana, Nrsimha Bhagavan ki jai. One of his many appearances in Gaur Leela. We revere him, we worship him with regard to being the protector of bhakti. So, in this way, all opposition to the Sankirtan was overcome. And now, in his Dham, he established in his Dham, the manifestation on earth, what it should be like. And now everyone was attached to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the reasons of his devotion. And now what did he do? He left. How you can just try to imagine how they felt. This is how the whole, all the Vaishnavas, and then he converted the government. All the people now, they were converted basically to Vaishnavism, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, their leader. And a rumor then circulated around town, Nimai Pandit will take sannyas. Nimai Pandit will take sannyas. What will become of his mother, his wife Vishnupriya, and all of us? What will become of us? He was everything to them. And it is said in Bhagavatam, you think, how could he do that? How could he do that? Right? You're starting to wonder, well, how could he do that? Why didn't he stay there? What does the Bhagavatam say? Chaktva sudus tadasurepsita rajlakshmim dharmishtarya vachasa yadagadharanyam mayam rigam daite epsitam anvadhavad vande mahapurushate charanadamindam. It's his renunciation and sannyas is talked about in this way. Tyaktva sudus tadasurepsita rajlakshmim. The Raj Lakshmi, the royal goddess of fortune, was Vishnupriya, his wife. Tyakta. He left his wife. I mean, you could get anything from her. Right? You remember when Rukmini blessed the Brahmin, Sudama, Krishna's friend? What happened? He left her and her love, really. He left her praying. This is the most pitiful thing. Devotees' hearts will break to hear this. But Tyaktva suduscha disurepsita raj lakshman dharmishtari vachasa yadagadharanyam mayam rigam. The reason comes. Mayam rigam daita epsitam anbharavat. Why did he leave? For us. Oh my God! Now we're really in trouble. To think, how could he leave? We were charmed by the possibility if I could have been there with all the devotees chanting with him, how they loved him. The stories are innumerable, the measure of their love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his love for them. It's so charming. And he left, and our hearts plummet to the depths. And then we're told he left for us, that we might know about that Leela, that we might enter there. And entering there means to enter into Vrindavan. It's a lotus within a lotus. But Dasya Bhakti to Gaur gives you position in Radha Krishna Leela, automatically. Sridhar Maharaj used to say, if you come recommended from that department, oh, you're coming from that department. Very good, come in. Very good. You have a place here, an important place. Prabhupada used to say, my place of worship is Mayapur, Navadvip. My place of residence is Vrindavan. Worship in Navadvip, live in Vrindavan. This is the secret. Of course, then you end up living in Navadvip also and worshipping in Vrindavan. It goes back and forth. But the point is that the giver of Krishna Leela, of Krishna Bhakti, the fountain from which Krishna Leela is flowing in all directions, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he is our Ishta, our deity. We worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and automatically, as I said, you cannot study Krishna, Gaur Leela, and not find out about Krishna, not end up loving Krishna, Radha Krishna. So he left anyway. Early in the morning, before the rise of the sun, the rumor had been about and so forth. The night before, he talked with Vishnu Priya, and she cried, and he said, you don't understand. In this Leela, we have to cry. That is what we have to do. In this Leela, we have to cry for others. So he went to distribute the Rag Marg to everyone. He took sannyas. He walked out before the sun set. And Sachi she couldn't sleep. She had some hint of this. She stood like a stone figure. And he walked past her. That's unbelievable. Sachinandan Gaurari ki jai. Sachinandan walked past Sachi, walked out. It was a heartbreak. How could he do this? How much he cares for us, something like that. And their love only swelled that much more. And he went then to, what is it? Place of Mahaprabhu's sannyas. Katwa, he went. And there was Keshav Bharati. Now he's meeting his second guru, his sannyas guru. What was the time?
11:04.
11:04. Should I go on? On we go. So we said we were going to talk about his three gurus. Now he's left Navadvip, or so it appears. He left. Just like it appears that Krishna left Vrindavan to go to Dwarka. For what purpose? To establish Dharma, deal with the demonic elements and so forth. And Krishna in Vrindavan doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He only gives bhakti. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna fully in Navadvip. He comes out to establish Dharma, to go to take sannyas, and he'll go to Puri, as we'll hear, and to South India, where he meets his third guru. And Katwa, he met Keshav Bharati, and devotees, headed by Nityananda Prabhu, came to the sannyas ceremony. And it was a pathetic scene, full of karuna rasa, this pathetic rasa. And it's also the compassionate rasa. This corresponds, of course, with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's. This is his compassionate outreach now that he's involved in. And they are experiencing karunya rasa. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has to cut his hair. He's very beautiful with his hair. There are many beautiful songs about his beautiful features and so forth. So to cut the hair, this is, and then the symbolism of this, that he is the transcendental Cupid himself, and he's going to shave his head, which means to do away with all vanity, and you're not supposed to look very pretty like that as a sannyasi. So he's going to shave his head to take sannyas. Of course, he became more beautiful, but this was just how much the devotees were charmed by him. That this was a huge event. That he's going to cut his hair. How is it possible? And of course, what that means, what the implication of that was. So, the barber was cursed. How could you do that? Well, who was he in Krishna Lila? He was somebody, I forget, somebody in Mathura who dealt with Krishna in a particular way that was not pleasing to the inhabitants of Vrindavan when Krishna went there. This is the Mathura at Katwa.
Wasn't a cloth merchant?
Something, a cloth merchant perhaps, yeah. So he cut his hair. Keshava Bharati then was to give him the mantra. And Mahaprabhu, he said to Murari, I believe it was Murari, he said, I think this is the mantra he's going to give me, Tattvamasi. And I'm not particularly fond of that idea, the way it's thought. It means, usually thought of, you are that. It's a famous aphorism that Shankar, of the great Advaitin, made much of. He looked at it as the principal vakya, or sound of the Shruti. And in his interpretation, it talks about the oneness between Jiva and Brahman. It's not like the oneness between me and Hari Bhakti or me and Agni. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't like that idea. In dress and formally, Keshava Bharati was in an Advaitin line. You see how he's crossing over the different lines of religious sectarian concerns in the context of his Leela, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He took sannyas from an Advaitin. Of course, Murari was one of his classmates, and he was quite learned himself. So he said, I think that you can think of the mantra like this. Instead of you are that, which is one translation, it can also be translated, you are his. Mahaprabhu said, yeah, that's the idea. You are his. So then he spoke to Keshava Bharati and he said, the mantra you're going to give me, I'm thinking that this is how it should be thought of. You are his. He breathed that into the ear of Keshava Bharati, and a revolution was created in the heart of Keshava Bharati. His whole religious conception was turned upside down. He said, yeah, I like that, he said. He became a Vaishnav. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu initiated his guru, his sannyas guru, and then he received the mantra from him. He obviously he doesn't need a guru in either of these two instances now, his Diksha guru, his sannyas guru, as we're seeing. But nonetheless, he insisted, no, you give me the mantra and so forth, to teach us the importance of having a guru. It's amazing that such a thing could be thought of as undesirable. If you have a guru, then you think, how could one possibly think this would be undesirable or an impediment to my spiritual progress? Of course, there is misrepresentation. But as I said, this is hardly a justification, because something can only be misrepresented if it actually exists. That should just say to us that much more. You don't imitate things that aren't good, so there is a good thing, and it's good guidance. and it may be imitated, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does. We should go and seek it out. And how will we seek it out? With our sincerity. That's all we have to go with. And we'll find our way in due course and find good guidance. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was teaching us this. So he took sannyas from Keshava Bharati after making him into a Vaishnava. Keshava Bharati was one of the 9 sannyasis that are said to be the metaphorical, allegorical root of the tree of bhakti, that is Chaitanya himself, the branches of which are his devotees, the fruits of which are love of God. These were very stalwart. Keshava Bharati, Brahmananda Bharati, Keshav Puri, and so forth. There are 9 of them. It means to say that his bhakti and this lila seva that he entered into and opens the doors to for us with regard to the world, it's rooted in renunciation. So it's otherworldly. They're the roots of the tree. So how is the tree attached to the world? By renunciation. These are the extraordinary roots of an extraordinary tree. And these were elders. Elders and heavy sannyasis. Brahmananda Bharati used to wear only a deerskin. They were heavy renunciates. Their renunciation was, detachment was very prominent and visible. And elders, they would, it was frightening practically to a householder to see such a person like, no, run in the other direction, And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu now is only 25 years old. Some of us have been there. You'll get there soon. 25 years old, and in the prime of his life. And as I said, the whole of Nadia was attracted to him. The world was falling at his feet to offer itself to him, as it does to youth, especially a youth like this. And he's going to forego it all from just a religious, worldly point of view. It's just like shocking. It's like you find people who say, that they're religious and like Sridhar Maharaj's parents, Brahminical family, very religious and so forth. But when he wanted to join Gaudiya Math, they said, well, let's not take it too far. It's a good thing. But that's a little extreme. Something like that. So here he had taken sannyas. And this is earth-shattering. Earth-shattering. Generally, the sannyasas take... Of course, I took sannyas at 25 or 24, but that was also crazy. But that was Prabhupada. He drove us crazy, so... But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this was earth-shattering, like an earthquake rippling across West Bengal and Katwa, and Puri's not far by comparison, on the subcontinent of India. So the news was rippling down that such a thing happened, and so what happened then? Well, at Nityananda Prabhu, he went back to Nadia, and he brought Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mother. Now, when you take sannyas, it's not like, you're giving up the whole family and everything like that. So it's not really great to have your mother around for that one. So then he's just taking sannyas, and here's his mother. And so what does he say? He says, oh, I'm crazy. What have I done? I've condemned for what I've done to give you up in this way, I'm prepared to give up the sannyas. I did it in a moment of madness. All of his love for Sachi. This Rasananda coming out. Nityananda Prabhu, he's in charge of this. Vatsalya Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Dasya Rasa in Braj. This is his domain. He orchestrated this wonderful Vatsalya in Gaur Lila at the taking of the sannyas. And Mahaprabhu says, screw the sannyas. Wait a minute, you just took sannyas. This is this is a big thing. Forget it. It's mom, so of course she's a religious person, and so she thinks, I cannot have my son be criticized by learned people for giving up sannyas, but I cannot bear to lose him at the same time. And he put it in her hands. You do with me as you like. Mother knows best. So whatever you say, that I will do. He was going to go to Vrindavan, and from Navadvip. So Sachi, with her wisdom, said, "No, you keep the sannyas. What's done is done, and go to Jagannath Puri. That's not far. So news about you will come. I'll hear news about you." So this way it was kind of rectified, so to speak. He walked out in the middle of the night, and she was like a stone statue. She couldn't speak, and he couldn't talk to her. And so Nityananda Prabhu said, "We got to straighten this out. You got to work this. We're a family here. You got to work this out." So this is how it was worked out. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then, onward he went to Jagannath Puri as a sannyasi, and this is his Leela in which he comes after us, so to speak. So he arrives in Puri, of course, and there, the first thing he does is convert the Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, this big logician who was very well educated, and now he was living in Puri. He was one of the king's gurus, advisors, and so forth. And so he converted the king's guru, he converted the king. But on the strength of his own charm and so forth, the Rajprataparudra was very powerful, became the follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sarvabhauma was completely converted. It's a huge conversion. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I'm a sannyasi, so I've got to go." As they travel, not to stay in any one place for too long is kind of the idea, where you might become attached and dependent on someone for your sustenance. To practice, I'm not dependent, I'll go and God will take care of me, something like that. So he wanted to go to South India. This is part of the Madhya Leela, the intermediate, middle Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his outreach. It's all for us, his sannyas. So that we could go back into the Navadvip and forget about the sannyas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We're not interested in that. But we are interested in that, aren't we? Because he's teaching. That makes it possible for us to understand him. And the full measure of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is his Leela Nadia in Navadvip. That's where we want to enter. That is the lotus inside the lotus, where you'll find yourself in Krishna Leela at the same time. So, as he was leaving Jagannath Puri, having just converted the whole place, Sarvabhauma said to him, "One thing I have to tell you, if you're going to go, if you got to go, you got to go, but you do what you can do as you like. You are the Ishwar, Swatantra, completely independent and so forth. But I got one small piece of advice for you. There's a person you got to meet down there. I never really understood this guy before." Sarvabhauma again was a logician, a Vedantist, and so forth. And he said, "I met this fellow before. There's something about him that I thought was interesting, but I couldn't quite relate to him. But now that I have understood you, now I understand him. And you two got something in common. You've got to meet this person. He's working for the government down there. His name is Ramananda. Roy Ramananda. He would speak in some ways poetically and whatnot. I couldn't quite get it, but now I get it. Now that I know you, you are two birds of the same feather. You got to meet him." So Mahaprabhu said, "I take it on my head. This is like a fourth guru. You're my Siksha guru. Yeah, so I take your Siksha, and I look for him." And he came in the course of his travels early on in South India, the banks of the Godavari, and there, bathing in the morning in the river, this sannyasi, Sri Krishna Caitanya was his sannyas name. Sri Krishna Caitanya, Sri Krishna Caitanya. Say it. Sri Krishna Caitanya, Sri Krishna Caitanya. Krishna Caitanya, it means Krishna consciousness. That is a very nice name. He was bathing, and along came horns and reciters and the kind of a governor of the area on a palanquin being taken, which was like getting him in a car and his limo and driving him to the spa or something. He was going to to bathe at the river, and so quite a few Brahmins and whatnot and servants of the court, so to speak, and this was Ramananda, and they saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they stopped in their paths, and they were on very different paths, ostensibly, so it appeared. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sannyasi, Ramananda was in government, politics, and Ramananda was a householder, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were an enunciate, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a sannyasi and a Brahmin was supposed to, according to the social system, keep certain company and avoid other company in terms of intimate dealings and so forth. And Ramananda was from a Shudra Varna, and so there were reasons from a social point of view that they shouldn't have connected, but they connected deeply. Very deeply. Just from looking at one another, they connected, and Ramananda, tears began to come from his eyes. And his associates were seeing something about him they didn't know. What was his inner life? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, tears falling from his eyes, and they went to one another, and in front of everybody, they embraced. And people were thinking, what's going on here? This is extraordinary. What is this? This is like the crossing over the socio-religious standards, and it's wrong, but it looks right. They look like they belong to one another. They have something deep in common. And Mahaprabhu exchanged words with them and glorified Ramananda. Ramananda said, "You're a sannyasi. I'm a low-born person, you're an elevated soul," and so forth. Mahaprabhu said, I want to meet, you know Krishna, I want to learn from him about you. He said, "Kiba vipra, kiba nashi, sudra kene noi, ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hai." Where will we find our guru? Anywhere. Anywhere. Wherever we find someone who knows the tattva of Krishna, then we find our guru there. We might think, he has to be in this group, he has to be in this institution, or he has to come from this type of family, or he can't be American, or he has to be an Indian, or people have all kinds of thoughts about it. Mahaprabhu didn't think like that. He said, "Kiba vipra kiba nashi sudra kene." All this social system, he said, I just had nothing to do with that. I'm interested in something beyond that, socio-religious life. I'm interested in spiritual life. Ye Krishna tattveta se guru hoy. Whoever knows Krishna, that's my guru. This is the third guru of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Ramananda said, "You're God." He said, "Well, you're my guru." He said, "So I want to learn from you." So then a beautiful lila ensues, and full of tattva there. Recorded here now in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the sambad, the conversation between Chaitanya and Ramananda. And Chaitanya asks the questions, and Ramananda gives the answers. And he asks about what is the goal of life and how to attain it. This is very nice questions we should ask the guru, prospective guru. If we're brought to a guru, we want to know what he's teaching. So we say, what is your sadhya and what is your sadhana? Because my sadhya is prem prayojan. My sadhana is bhakti. My sadhya is bhakti. My sadhana is bhakti. My goal is bhakti. My means is, my way is bhakti. We say, okay, this is what we're looking for. We're theoretically, at least I got that clear now. He goes, how much you attain, how well you can teach it, if you can charm my heart, then I'm all for that. I want that. So Mahaprabhu asked him this question: what is your sadhya? What is the sadhana? He said, what is the best sadhya? What is the best sadhana? He's already initiated diksha. He's already taken sannyas. So, what is he going to learn now? In other words, he's taken diksha. Then, if you take sannyas, it's like you graduated from diksha. You shouldn't take sannyas without inner experience, inner life. Is the idea? This is not supposed to be part of sadhana bhakti. The sannyasi is sarvadharma pritaja mamekam saranam braja. This is beyond the dharma. In the context of bhakti, it's beyond sadhana. Not that he doesn't do sadhana, at least for example, but there's another kind of sadhana in bhava bhakti. It has elements of sadhana and elements of prem. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. Now he comes to Ramananda. He's teaching us there's more than this sannyas, which essentially means to give up. There's something to get. And so here he finds his Ragmar Guru. What is the time?
11:27.
11:27. He finds his Ragmar Guru, the path of Rag, the path. Here, the inner life of Chaitanya was coming out that much more. Even then, even in the context, even in the context of distributing it, you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is doing the Yuga Dharma, distributing Nam Sankirtan, but he is who he is, so it's going to come out in a particular way. That means Ragmarg becomes accessible through him, through his dispensation of Nam. In other yugas you might chant Nam, but you would not necessarily get entrance to Ragmarg, but this is the blessing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Krishna himself. What else is he going to give? He's going to give himself then. So here he's renounced the world entirely, but he wants to enter into that other world. Of course, obviously, he was already in the other world, but in terms of a lesson to us. He's going to be schooled now in the whole of the Bhagavatam in this conversation of Ramananda, because Bhagavatam is really as we know from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, for example, which is ostensibly a commentary on Bhagavatam. It's about the fact that the world is permeated by consciousness, the subjective side of life. This is the most important thing. And there are gradations of consciousness everywhere. Lokas. And ultimately it is the Goloka. The cow loka, the cow place. The cows are the givers. So, to go to that place, to that realm, to that consciousness reality. To the consciousness of consciousness. So he takes him through all religious possibilities, starting with the social religious life of Varnashram that they just crossed over in their meeting and violated and trampled on. And Mahaprabhu says, say more. He goes from there up the religious ladder and into Mahaprabhu is rejecting everything. He says, that's not good. That doesn't interest me. That doesn't interest me. So he's testing him out, so to speak, and Ramananda is answering progressively. He doesn't tell everything to everybody. He's finding Ramananda in the role of the guru here. I've got a very good student. I'm testing. Well, what do you think about this? Nah, that's not good enough. Okay, more. He comes to the point of Shuddha Bhakti, Gyan Shunya Bhakti, Bhakti unencumbered by knowledge, even the knowledge that Krishna is God. Mahaprabhu said, we're getting somewhere. This I find interesting. Jnane praya shuddha pasyamante eva. This putting Gyan in its place, in a box, locking it up, Bhakti for its own sake. Mahaprabhu said, I like that, go on. Then he talked about Dasya Bhakti, Sakya Bhakti, Vatsalya Bhakti, Madhurya Bhakti, romantic Bhakti. Mahaprabhu said, yes, we really, well, this is getting, each one, he said, this is the best. Dasya Bhakti, this is the best. Is there anything more? Sakya Bhakti, this is the best. And then Vatsalya Bhakti, this is the best. And they are all the best. That's a fact. For each devotee, they are the best. But objectively speaking, he's going up the ladder. Madhurya Bhakti. And then in the context of Madhurya Bhakti, he says, say something about Krishna then. He speaks about Krishna Tattva. Then say something about Radha. He speaks about Radha Tattva. And then he's spoken about them separately. Krishna Tattva, Radha Tattva. Is there anything more? Ramananda says, there's more, but I can't say it. Nobody asked me about this. I tried to tell the Sarvabhauma, but he couldn't figure me out. He sent you to me. I say. He said, I can say something, but everything I've said so far, I have cited the sacred text to support it. But this one is off the map. This is like beyond, this hasn't been written about. Really. It's where it goes ultimately. Mahaprabhu said, go ahead, let's hear it. So Ramananda spoke. He spoke Radha Krishna Pranay. This is actually what he spoke. This is a verse of Sarup Damodar. He didn't say this verse, but Krishnadas uses this verse earlier on in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Radha Krishna Pranay, Vikritir Ladini Shaktiras. What is Pranay? Maybe we discussed it tonight, but Radha Krishna Pranay. And I quoted it earlier. Vikritir Ladini Shaktiras. But Ekatmano Vapi Bhubi Puram Vedo Gatoto. He talked about the union of Radha and Krishna. He talked about them separately, and he talked about the union, where their distinctions, their self-identity is blurred. Their self-identity is, this is Pranay, completely blurred in a dynamic sense, as this kind of a unity. Prema Vilas Vivarta, it's called also. When he's speaking about it, and he finishes, what happened? He looks at his student, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he sees Radha and Krishna. How good of a student he was. He learned it. What is Pranay? I think, is this what you mean? And then he looked again, and it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And again it was Radha Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahe Anya, Rupanuga Janera Jivan. The followers of Rupa Goswami, this is their life. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna. Radha Krishna Milan. This is, we find in Ramananda Sampad. This is, Mahaprabhu is learning from Ramananda, who is Vishaka Gopi, Radharani's dear friend in Vrindavan. What is the Radha Bhav, what it comes to, and so forth. So he shows himself, as I say, and Ramananda faints. So this is his Ragmar Guru. There we can learn something about Ragmar. This is one of the crescendos of the whole, it can be said to be the crescendo of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, this conversation. In this way we talked about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's three gurus. There's a place for that, be open for teaching. It may come from different places. If we know the teaching well, then we know our teacher well. Then we know he or she is not limited. As we said earlier, discussing yesterday, Chaitanya Krishnadas Kaviraj has gone to great efforts to emphasize what? Guru is many and one at the same time. And one means Guru is Krishna. Same message, same teaching, appearing in different vessels at different times. It's said in Bhagavatam, one cannot learn the truth from one guru alone. So you better get out there and look around for somebody else. But of course it means that you have to look so carefully at your guru and pay such close attention that when you turn the other way you find the whole world is speaking the same message. Because what he's teaching is, or she's teaching, is not something in a book. It may be represented in the book to some extent, but this is what the whole world is saying to us. So, the idea is openness to learn, openness to sign on for being a student forever. We're finding even Krishna becomes a student to the dancing of Radha. Krishna, he says what? Radhikar premera, ami guru, ami shishu guru nata, radhikar premera unmata. I'm the shishya, I'm the disciple, and Radha's dancing is my guru. Her love drives me mad.